and those 15 people couldn't make it, but you could. Anyways, Mark and I go back about 10 years, and we've become very good friends. And we've experienced some very unique things. We're going to have a fun night tonight. Tonight's going to be a night that I guess, Mitzi, when we get people that, if you can keep an eye on the what do they call it, the chat side of things. So if people want to come in and ask some questions, we would like to have some more interactivity going on here. Mark's a very interesting soul. We've had some incredible experiences together, and he's also been very experienced with and connected to this genre. I'm not sure, how long have you been connected to, let's say, to the UFOs? And
well, I've been interested my whole life. I mean, I started out reading Whitley Streiber's work, and I mean, ever since I was a kid, I've been interested, but it didn't really start. I mean, it really kind of kicked in when I decided to become a publisher and publish some of this. Some works, and actually then I met you, and I met all kinds of people at the events that I held. So I think like 2010 was when things like just really started to take off,
right,
in the ET world. Yeah,
I started coming to the UFO Congress, and the first guy I met there was a guy named Rick Nelson, who dragged me over to your table where you were working with the Romaneks. Selling their books and that sort of thing. You were their, I guess, you're the publisher. Yeah. And which is a very interesting side, which we'll get into later. That's certainly a field that a lot of people don't know about you. And actually, as a part of being a part of this genre, you've been a big person in influencing and allowing people to learn and educate themselves more on what's going on out there. So that'll be an interesting part of our night. As you and I met, we were talking a little bit off air before we started recording. There are people that you have, they're friends, you have real nice connection with, you enjoy getting together with them. But when you and I met, it was like an instantaneous bond. And I think a lot of these people in this genre have these interconnectivity. We met obviously for a purpose, for a particular reason. But I'd say that, I felt very close to you ever since we even call each other brothers. Since we've met, and
we did almost immediately, which was interesting.
And it's not an unusual thing in this genre. The people get very close. I mean, there's the people are here tonight, and the people we have every month. There's a reason why we're all here, and I think they all feel it. They're all interested. They want to learn more. They want some more experiences. Here's some stuff. Maybe have a few laughs. Learn something new, which hopefully tonight we'll be able to introduce some very interesting things. But a lot of the friends that we've come now, they seem that it's 7 years ago since the first time I went to the UFO Congress, and I'm still connected to a lot of those people. And
well, it's remarkable, and I think we've talked about this actually probably quite a bit, where we both come from a business background.
Yeah,
kind of a conservative business background, and where I always thought that these conventions would be like tinfoil hat things, where almost like a Trekkie convention, like Comic-Con or something. And I think we both talked about this, because I know you were thinking the same thing, but yet I mean it was I was so pleasantly surprised on my first experience, because man, I met some really interesting, brilliant, high-level folks that that I'm still connected to. I mean, it's not like you and others that I still that I've bonded with. So it was nothing like what I had thought it would be.
I have to agree with you 100%. When I went there, the Doubting Thomas, the aluminum foil hats, that kind of thought process was there, and a lot of good, interesting speakers. And at the end of that first year, I got into not listening to the speakers and sitting with people outside who were not in listening to the speakers and asking them the question, so why are you here? And I mean, you hear the most amazing stories why these people are all connected. Many different genres, from people say, you know, when I was 16, I was driving along this highway and saw this thing pass over top, to people that fly craft. I mean, it really is quite amazing. So yeah, the conferences are, I'd really advise people to go out and pick one that they like to try, and go there with an open mind and look to meet people of like-mindedness, hear what they got to say, ask lots of questions, listen a lot, and I think you can pick up a lot.
Hopefully we'll be able to do that in person again someday.
Yeah, I really do. I think we're really missing out on that. And you know how that is such a positive influence on all of us, and how it's even affected us from that perspective. Mm-hmm. Also, one of the things is through what we've done that I want to get into is we thought we were just like this talking one time, and we said, well, we should get together, and you invited me out to the cottage, and we to your cottage in Pennsylvania, and then we had Grant Cameron. What's that?
Which is where I am right now.
Yeah, which I can say, it looks a beautiful place with a gorgeous lake right out in front, and lots of great stories. We had Peter Robbins, Grant Cameron, Chris Bledsoe, Tim Taylor, you and I. And that was really, I mean, in today's world, I don't know, a lot of people know who those people are, but Randoms from Forest, I think Tim wrote a book, I think, on that.
He was just, you know, it's interesting because I think Grant brought him, and he was right in the middle of his experiences. I mean, so we really got an earful about what was going on with his experiences. I mean, just some unbelievable stuff.
Right.
So I don't know whether he's making a movie or it has been made. I don't think it's been made. Wasn't he in the process of making?
Actually, I think you're thinking of Chris Bledsoe. That was Chris Bledsoe's son.
Bledsoe, yeah.
Yeah, Bledsoe. I'm not sure. Actually, Grant's on here today. At least I see his name here as somebody in watching. But Bledsoe, I believe, has a movie deal, and they're working on it, plus a book. So Chris is a very interesting guy, and connected to a massive group, and these orbs attend his place all the time, which he takes videos of. Trees burn right in front of him. People coming there actually witness these things up front and center. So he's had an incredible experience. But you're right, we were right at the front end of his experience.
Yeah.
And then I met Peter Robbins actually in New York. Somebody had mentioned him and that he does tours and stuff like that. And then I found out how connected he was to the UFO groups, and that was just like meeting an old friend and getting through and walking through most of New York together. And it's been a couple of nights where we sat around and had some dinner and talked about stuff till nearly midnight every night. So it was a lot of fun. And then Tim Taylor.
Grant turned his mic on if you want to ask him a question.
Hi, Grant.
Grant.
Well, I think I should have been more specific. I'm Grant McPhail. I forgot there was a famous Grant. I'm a more infamous Grant.
There you go. You can ask questions too.
I will.
Well, there's another Grant on here too. So.
People would rather get Grants than Bills.
That's an old Grant. That one.
That's funny.
Well, there's the other Grant.
Grant Cameron, are you here? Turn your mute off and come on in if you're here.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
How you doing, Grant?
Okay. I'm doing fine. I'm kind of excited to see the cottage there. It was quite the cottage.
Yeah, wasn't that something
that he actually built, right, Mark?
Yeah.
You built the cottage.
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Grant, it's been a long time, my friend. How are you?
It's been a while. I had one question. And probably you can maybe deal with it a little bit later. I wanted to ask you about the phone calls. You were telling me when I was at the cottage about the phone calls, and you were going to do a book, and you never did. So you got quite the interesting story that I don't think anybody's ever heard.
No,
phone calls.
That's true. I never did. I started to do it, and life got in the way, and I stopped publishing. So I kind of got I got out of that world a little bit, not the ET world, but the publishing world. So I kind of lost my contacts with publishing. But yeah, it was going to be called the Audrey Files.
Wow.
And I don't know if you guys know, anyone who's connected or knows about the Stan Romanek case. That these Audrey calls were these anomalous phone calls that were from we figured, after a few years, we figured out that they were coming from the hybrid females, primarily the oldest female of his progeny, called Kioma, and we affectionately called the calls the Audrey calls, because they used this very sophisticated text-to-speech program, and really sophisticated. I mean, much better than what they had. I'm sure now they might have something that's catching up to it, but in 2010, this was very sophisticated. And they used this text-to-speech program because the females' voices were extremely hard to listen to. They sounded like 3-year-olds with a 240 IQ. It was really, seriously, little squeaky high voice, because they were largely telepathic. So they didn't really use their actual vocal cords. And when we actually did hear one of them speak, we don't know which one actually spoke, but man, it was like, wow, this sounds like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. That's brilliant. So they used this text-to-speech program, which was in a high English female voice. So, these calls that we would get were, I mean, and there were a lot of them. I mean, it wasn't just me getting them. Stan, of course, had many of them, but anybody connected to Stan's case got an Audrey call, at least one. I think I had about 18 over the course of publishing a few of the books. And it was never about me. It was always about the work, what to get the books move forward, to alert us to what they would call the opposition. The opposition would be messing around, constantly messing with us, trying to derail the publishing. And I would get a message, and they would, they'd say, hey, look, something might happen tomorrow. We think you should handle it this way. They never said you must handle it this way. It was always a suggestion, but I really got to trust the information, because it was not always correct, but most of the time it was correct. Amazing stuff. Yeah.
And you told me about the 2 phones. Can you talk about that? That you had the one phone. They would actually phone on the one phone. They
would call on my one cell phone, and I would actually, the phone would be in my pocket, and I could. It was my work phone. But I'd get calls from work, and I would, But when I got a call from Audrey Kioma, I would know it. I mean, literally, when it buzzed in my pocket, I'd be like, "Oh my God!" I get all excited because, it's them. And I remember one time I had a relatively tight pair of jeans on. I gained a little weight, and I had a tight pair of jeans on, and the phone's ringing, and there's a few people, in the room with me, and I'm dancing around trying to get the freaking phone out of my pocket, and they're looking at me like, what on earth is he doing? I'm like, trying to get that phone, because if I missed the call, God knows, they were, the calls were spotty, in the sense that they were calling long distance, 1,305 light years away. So, yeah.
It's quite a solar plant or cellular plant.
And they would, if they had trouble, they would always comment, like, what happened? Like, we're so sorry, but your son has tremendous solar flare activity today. And they would say it much more eloquently than that. But so
do you have recordings of the Audrey calls?
I do have recordings. I've got quite a few recordings, actually, of them. Would you like to hear one?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you have them? Do you have them with you?
I have one. I've got one that I
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, have you heard them, Mark?
I've heard. Yes, I have.
Well, of course you have.
Yeah.
But Grant, you have too, right?
We'll even
no, I've never heard yours. I talked to Alejandro Rojas. He played his that Alejandro got, and then the one that Paula Harris got. That she got one as well. Sure. So that's why I was thinking that it'd be interesting if you wrote this up, because I don't think a lot of people realize what was going on in the background.
Oh my
they
God.
know sort of the surface story, but this thing in the background said, like, there's no way anybody's making this up. There's no way.
There was so much, my God. So, we were getting messed with pretty heavily throughout the process. And And so we were, you know, I would get these calls because I was, you know, knee deep in the publishing end of it. And one of their favorite tactics, and they, you know, the DTs never named them. They would just call them the opposition. So they would, you know, they would warn us. So one thing that they did several times was they drive by, I guess, with a van or some, you know, some vehicle by Stan's house, and they blast him with an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, to wipe out his electronics, you know, to kind of slow us down a little bit. So I had gotten basically it was a little late because they had tried to get me, and it had already happened. I think it had just happened, but they did try to warn me. But the cool thing about the whole call is cool, but the cool thing about the call is the day before, I was in my car driving to work, and I asked Audrey a question just out loud in my car about a spiritual matter. And I kind of, you know, was hoping they would give me an answer. So at the end of the warning, basically, and the heads up about the EMP, she answers my question in an interesting way. So I will play that. Hopefully, you know, I've got this little recorder here. I used to actually literally put it up to the phone when they call. I knew they were, you know, like I said, I knew it was them calling, so I'd have this thing ready and I turned it on before I picked it up. And so let's see if I can let's see if you guys can hear this. Okay.
Mark, we can barely hear it.
Is that better? Where's my mic?
That might be better. It might be on the lower part of your computer.
Down here? I'll play it again. Let's figure this out. I don't even know where my mic is on this thing. You're not hearing it? You can hear it now?
It's better.
How about that?
Perfect.
Okay, let me start it over.
Okay.
Just bear with me a minute.
We got 2 hours.
Might take that long.
Hello? Mark? Yes. Sorry, we had to call back. Utilizing this technology makes it hard to stay connected on the mass. We are sorry to bother you, but it is still not safe for us to contact Starseed. We have reason to believe that Starseed has been a recent target of technology that you would call a magnetic pulse. This is disturbing only because any electronic devices in the upper levels of Starseed's living space will have been affected, including his, how we say, computer. Without a computer, they cannot finish the book on time, and staying on schedule is of the utmost importance. Please let him know, and we hope it is not too late. And Mark, any questions you may have for us are answered with them yourself. Everyone involved with Starseed also has guidance. Trust your intuition. Thank you for this.
There you have it.
Wow.
Okay.
Beautiful.
It is. That is something else.
Yeah.
So, Mark, maybe we should talk a little bit about that aspect of it, and where we are connected to that. So we went to the UFO Congress. What year was this where we got called?
In 2013, I got an Audrey call. Different than most of the others. It literally, they asked me to, when I say they, because they always said we, so we were assuming that it was two of the hybrid females that we were dealing with, the two older ones, Suri and Kioma. And we never knew for sure, although we had reference a number of times and asked one of the other entities through Stan, and would get confirmation that it was indeed Kioma and the other female. So anyway, I got a call asking me to set up a meeting sooner rather than later She proceeded to rattle off 21 names, Mark Olson being one of the names, and to assemble us in a remote location because they had information for us. So basically, I scrambled.
Mark, if I can just now.
Yeah, go, sure.
We're talking about Stan and Lisa Romanek, Jaime Maussan, who is very famous in Mexico, Foster Gamble.
Yep.
John Tremble, is it?
Semple.
Semple. Leon Sprinkle.
Basically the producer of Stan Romanek's movie.
Yes, right, exactly.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I thought give us some context to who these 20 people were, so they're connected to this.
21. There were 21. There was one guy who couldn't make it from Ireland, but we had a guy from Australia came, the Mexican contingent came, the Canadian contingent came. And people, it was really pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
And there was some very cool stuff that happened. I think that one of the things that really sticks in my mind was it was a 2-day event. We had everybody arrived kind of Saturday, right, all day, and then Saturday night we had an event where I was going to do a PowerPoint presentation on some anomalous photographs that a researcher and basically someone who was involved in the Romanek case, Stanislav Ojak, in 1973, he was doing these lens cap on photographs, meaning he would literally take pictures of all kinds of things with the lens cap on, and we're talking about analog, basically film, and probably about 10% of these, he would get anomalous, what he called anomalous photographs. And in 1973, was at a Seals and Crofts concert. And at the end of the concert, the concert was done and they had the stage lights on and it was pretty dark. He took one of these photographs and it was probably the most anomalous result that he ever had. He had these interesting, kind of organic dancing figures around the stage that looked almost like red coral. I mean, if you know what red coral looks like, it was just the most amazing thing. And then the stage had this haze over it, which was not there. I mean, basically it's just stage lights. And in that haze was a female's face, clear as day. Now this was 1973, and he spent many years trying to figure out who the hell that face was. He thought it was Michelangelo at first, and then he thought it might have been, he was all over the place, but it's a female face. I remember him saying he just, for many years. So now we're 40 years later, he was named to be at that event along with the rest of us. And we come to realize that it's Kioma's face, the hybrid female that we've been talking to, that she inserted into this picture, his picture 40 years ago. And almost to the day, 40 years later, we're at this event in 2013. And now, okay, so that night, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. That Saturday night, when I was going to present those photos to all of us, I had it on two modalities. I had it on a disc, and I had it on a thumb drive. I thought, okay, I can't lose. Had my laptop. We hooked it up to the projector. We hooked it up to the audio, all set to go. I loaded it onto my computer. The PowerPoint, it looked like it loaded. I tried to play it and it's empty. Nothing in there. Just it has the title page. That's it. So I'm like, all right, do it again. I did it again. I did it again. Nothing. Another guy comes in. He says, look, I work on this. I do this stuff. I've got my laptop. Let's try my laptop. I can figure it out. It's long story short, 2 hours later, we ain't got this thing up and running. This is, just totally stymied. So we hung it up. Everybody went to bed. So the next day, during the regression, Stan's regression, by the way, it was Leo Sprinkle, right, who did the regression, right?
Yeah, sure.
He was by name, asked to come in and do the regression for Stan, you know, to get the information through Stan. So anyway, the question was asked by Stanislav, you know, if this picture was indeed the same picture of this female Kioma that we've been dealing with, and the answer was clearly yes. And I mean, we knew it, but you know, when you think about what the ramifications are, you know, she's a time traveler, right? She's a time traveler. She you know, she knew that we were going to have this event, so it's basically confirmation. It was done so that it was a real confirmation for the entire group, you know, that this stuff is real and that they're real, and that time, you know, many different things on many different levels, right? Time travel, the fact that these ETs are real and they can do this. You know, she's presenting herself at these different ages, even, you know, like she's in linear years, I think. How old would she have been? Maybe 10 at that point, 9 or 10, and she's presenting as like a 30-year-old woman. So she's presenting herself as a future her, you know, in 2013, and going back to 1973, inserting herself into Stanislav's photograph so that it can be discussed in 2013 at this event. Unbelievable. It's mind-boggling. No, getting back to why we weren't able to, you remember this? Yes. Why we weren't able to show it that night. There was a stranger, and we were told on Sunday, there was a stranger in our midst that we didn't know. It was somebody that somebody came in and they did not want that person to see those photographs.
Somebody from the resort that ran the resort.
Well, so they said, but apparently they weren't.
Yes.
Yep. And so they prevented us from, me and the rest of us from projecting that photograph in particular. The next day it worked fine.
Sorry, Mark. We didn't get to see it the next day though, which.
Well, not everyone, because we had a full day, but you did though, didn't you? I mean, because you're special.
It was a Canadian contingency.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that was a very. I mean, there were so many obviously like-minded people, and some really like Jaime Maussan, you know, was interesting.
He filmed it too. He had his film crew.
Right. It was really quite an interesting thing getting together and just being part of that. It was just, you know,
yeah.
It was like you could not say no to that if you got asked to go do something like that. You think?
Well, I played everyone. I played everyone that was named. I played everyone the Audrey call, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, you know, I gotta go."
Yeah. No,
exactly. Like when you hear your name called out, it's like shit. You know?
Yeah.
Was that taped, that session?
Yes. Yeah. I have the video of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have like almost a whole massive story that nobody even knows. Even I sort of knew a little bit about this, but I didn't know some of the details you're getting into here. I'd never heard. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah. It was mind-boggling. I mean, really, you know, even just my you know, the serendipitous events that happened that kind of led me to volunteer as a publisher for this. I mean, I had read Stan's first book, Messages, in 2009. I mean, I was consuming anything I could get my hands on at that point. And I really, I mean, it resonated with me because there was so much evidence and so many high-level people, you know, Dr. Claude Swanson, the physicist, you know, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Stan's book, Messages, but there's he was given these equations, these absolutely beautifully elegant, super high level, like Einsteinian type physical equations, and he you know, he's got a 4th grade math education. I mean, his math level is like 4th grade. So they, you know, they were certain that it wasn't him. And you know, and this guy Claude Swanson, who, you know, actually has a number of books out on physics and all kinds of things, torsion fields, and I mean, very interesting guy. You know, did a lot of work on these equations and figured out what they were. There were time travel equations, and Einstein-Rosen-bridge, you know, equations. Some of the equations were known, most of them weren't. So, I mean, I felt the case was extremely valid, and I mean, all of these tremendous validations that I you know, figured it's just no way. Now, and I was thinking this stuff before I had ever met Stan, and then you know, by chance, a mutual friend who I just happened to be talking to, then I said, hey, I just read this really cool book, and he goes, I know that guy. You understand, you know, it was, and I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. He's like, yeah, I not only do I know him, but you know, he wants to write another book. He's got a lot of other experiences, and he doesn't want to use this publisher because they kind of ripped him off. You know, it was an international bestseller, and he made no money. You know, so you know, I mean, I'm famous for getting into shit I know nothing about. You know, I mean, it's just like I'm famous for that. I mean, I had knew nothing about publishing, not even the first thing, you know, and I thought, I'll do it. Like I do, you know.
Mark
So
Leone, I have a question. I don't know if you want to start answering.
Absolutely, sure.
Okay. So did Audrey people tell you their home solar system or planet, dimension, or reality?
They did.
They explained the reason for the interest of Earth people.
They did. The planet, and I'm not going to remember the pronunciation of the planet, 1,305 light years away. I'm not sure anymore where. I could go back and look where in the constellation, you know, where in the sky it would be. But they're in our timeline. The beings that we were dealing with, which were hybrids, basically hybrided from Stan's sperm, an egg donor who we know. You know her too, Mark.
Yep.
Grant, I'm sure you know her.
Yeah. Starts with a V.
Starts with a V. Yep. And then two different ET DNA profiles. And the reason they did this was they're 5 and 6th density. There's two different types of ETs. One we called the Elohim, which were energy beings. They're 6th density, and they couldn't communicate with us. So they, you know, and I'm sure there are many other. I mean, I'm sure I'm oversimplifying this because, you know, that's what we do. But they've created among other reasons these hybrids so that, you know, they're 4th dimensional. They had a lot easier time dealing with us and communicating with us, you know, closer to our vibration.
Is that your understanding of the hybrid program? Is that what they're doing?
No, well, that's not. There's so many different, you know, reasons for the hybriding program. That's just this particular, you know, the ET that we affectionately called Grandpa because he was so wrinkled, was what we believe was from the Orion constellation. You know, there's all different hybrid programs. That's not the only one. And really, you know, it's fascinating that the only reason they wanted this book published, and they used to tell us all the time, the reason is simple but daunting. It's basically awareness. That's it. Awareness of them and awareness that we are members of a much larger family than we know, you know, and they always used to say, you know, that awareness, the teaching of the awareness is simple, but daunting. But that's the whole, you know, and I'm sure there's probably other hidden purposes, but that's what they let us know about, was that's really, you know, that was the whole thing, was awareness, you know. And of course, what I found out in the process was that my own awareness, you know, I had beliefs certainly, but then when you start to deal with another, you know, a star, you start to deal with star beings, then you have a knowing, right? It's like, you know, somebody says, do you believe you have a left hand? And I, you know, well, no, I know I have it. Here it is, you know. So it's a whole different thing. But beyond that, it literally, you know, the awareness of extraterrestrials changes the way we think. It changes us fundamentally. Would you agree, Mark?
It has to be.
Yeah. So there's
one
something.
of the takes I've got.
Yeah, there's something about that awareness that changes us, and it changes us vibrationally, you know, spiritually, and they know this. They know this. So it's not just like, oh, I'm aware of, you know, that there's a car parked on the street now, and before there wasn't. You know, I mean, it's very deep. Yeah, definitely changes us, right, Ron? Yeah.
Another question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I call it the theory of wow. I mean, you take all this bizarre stuff. Do you think that's part of it? Is that they do this really, really bizarre stuff that you just they sell you that you are the messenger and you can't let go, because it's like you can't believe what's going on here. Like on the outside, but when it's happening to you, it's this. You're talking about the awareness, but they have to. I call it like the circus. Like, you know, you wouldn't know who Jesus was unless he walked on water and fed 5,000 people and stuff. They do this really weird stuff to sell you on it, and then they want you to go out and deliver the message like Jesus.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I think that there's, you know, and I think that again, there's such a wide range of people's experience, right? So I, you know, I could never speak for everyone, but, you know, just my own experience, certainly they wowed the shit out of me, you know, but they weren't really trying. I mean, they didn't do, you know, it's not a circus. They're not circus performers. But I think that they realize that we're skeptical, and that we, you know, they've got to keep us interested. You know, we lose, we have short attention spans. So we got to do some circus tricks, right? To keep us interested, right? That's right. Yeah. Uh-huh. And maybe, you know, of course, that's interesting. It's, you know, that the experiencer syndrome, you know, where people, you know, especially when experiences stop, you know, you find that people will do things that you know, to kind of get that rush back, you know.
Because you mentioned the thing about the PowerPoint that happened to me last year in Laughlin for Paul's conference. They took 40 slides, they doubled them. Then they took slides and they made them, one was in 9:16, one was in 3:4. And they took the audios and put the audios on other slides. And the guy that was doing the thing when we were doing the demo, he's saying, well, you made a mistake. I said, no, I've done like 100 PowerPoints. This something weird. And then Paula said, you know what they're doing? I said, no, Paul. I went back to the room, reloaded the whole thing in the hotel room, came back. Same thing. It was just, I could not believe. But it's hard to explain the PowerPoint thing because people, unless you've done PowerPoint, but I was just floored. I could not believe what they did.
And why do you think? Did you ever get any sense of why they were doing that, Grant?
Well, that's where I get this thing about the theory of wow. Like to me, the whole thing comes down to awareness. It's like, why do UFOs have lights on it? They don't have to fly by. They don't have to turn the light. We don't have lights on our
Right.
plane. You know, why do they do crop circles? Why? All this stuff they're just doing because they want you to. And especially if you're the messenger, they do weird stuff around you because you just can't let it go. And if you sort of let it go, then they'll do something weird again to get you back in and get you hyped up. And you look like a crazy man, but you're just sort of in your back of your mind, you're saying, this is for real because I'm not making this stuff up. Yeah.
Well, it works. You know, I guess it's a proven modality for them. They know, you know, it's and they enjoy watching us freak out too. You know, that's half the fun is you know, when we finally got this ET that we call Grandpa to answer the question of what they do for fun, like do they have fun, do they, you know, and he would always say that it is not important. I mean, over and over and over. So finally it's like, you know, dude, you got to answer the question. And he said, we watch humans. It's like we were all cracking up like, yep, okay, that's honest. We can see that, you know, a bunch of like knuckleheads down here, and they're just having fun watching our antics.
Have you had any weirdness happen after Stan left the scene?
Not in that realm, no. Other weird, I got involved in other things, but not nothing. Zero. Not another Audrey call. Once again, I've made it clear. Well, I want to make it clear. It was never about me. You know, it was always, you know, about me getting the work done. You know, so there was that was very clear to me, and you know, and I was totally cool with that. So once the book was published and the danger was out of the way, in the sense that, you know, they realized that they were selling them, and, you know, we sold a lot of them. yeah, not a single not a single call. That's not true, actually. I did get a couple more. Yeah, I actually did get a few more, but still within that time period, you know, not lately. I mean, I haven't had a call, although there have been some calls, you know. The baby mama got a couple of calls not too long ago that she told me about.
I hope
you read another question.
Yeah, so far there's no questions. There's just been kind of comments. I think we're eagerly listening to your stories, and Grant and Mark have been kind of coming in and out. So oh, there is somebody's curious about Mark's experience with Indigenous connection with this topic.
Yeah, you know, after my, well, actually before and after, interesting. 2008 was my first real deep dive into Indigenous peoples, where I spent a month down in the jungles of Guatemala with the Maya, the Quiche Maya. We were doing a film, a documentary on the basically the Mayan Pope. I mean, that's, you know, he's the head of the Quiche Maya, which is about 2 million people. And Wandering Wolf, we called him Tata, which is grandpa or grandfather. And he brought us to all these incredible sites that, I mean, you know, white people just don't go to. You know, it's just amazing stuff. And we would do ceremony and really got a you know, a real sense of their, I mean, they're so comfortable with the thought of extraterrestrials, you know. I mean, literally it's like, you know, to them, they're like their ancestors, you know. They have absolutely, you know, their Quetzalcoatl, their one of their gods is you know, was a white guy with a beard, you know, and they figured he was an ET. But I've also had contact, and I've spent time with the Aymara in Bolivia and the Quechua in Peru.
Mark, we should, do you have any more questions, Mitzi?
I do not.
Okay. Mark, we should talk about your traveling to Africa for a friend.
Oh, and boy.
It's, yeah, okay. I've seen the video, and it blew me away, but why don't you explain it? A lot more difficult without seeing imagery, but yeah, I think you can tell it pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. Crazy story. A friend who lives in Alabama, I'm not going to name him, is in contact with the Tall Whites, and he says they're from Aldebaran. And had been for a number of years, and he was downloading information on a healing device, on an etheric energy concentrator that they called Brind, and he called a Brind generator. So I knew about this, and I had talked to him about it. I hadn't seen them, didn't know a whole lot about them. So, and him and I would speak maybe every 3 or 4 months. Very interesting guy. I called him, and we were speaking, and I said, oh, by the way, if you're looking for me in a month or so, I'm going to Africa. I'm going to Kenya. And he basically stops, and he's like, so you're the one. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, they told me that a friend of mine is going to Africa, and that I am supposed to build him a set of these generators, and you're supposed to bring it to an African witch doctor, a Maasai witch doctor on the Masai Mara. And I'm like, okay. Crazy, right? I mean, absolutely crazy. But, you know, I mean, not any crazier than some of the other stuff I've been involved with. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to go with it. And I said, so do you have a name? And he said, no. And I said, do you have a location? And he said, the Masai Mara. And I said, the Masai Mara is like 30,000 square miles. You know, and I'm like, it's enormous. It spans 2 countries. You know, it's the Serengeti on the Tanzanian side and the Mara on the Kenyan side. It's huge, you know. And he's like, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. You know, we'll have to wait and see what comes up. You know, so I was pretty charged up, but I thought, you know, this is nuts. So he calls me up like 2 weeks before I'm leaving for this trip, which was 2011, and he says, I got the name. They got in touch with me last night, and I got the name. It's Mokele. And I'm like, wow. And I said, do you know where she is? And he said, nope, you'll find her. Do you have a description? He says, yep. This woman has it's very incongruous. She has an extremely old face and an extremely young body. So she has like a 16-year-old body with this ancient face, you know, and it's going to be striking. And her name is Mokele. So he sends me these boxes, and they're basically, you know, maybe so big, it's 7-8 inches in diameter. There's 2 of them. They're sealed. They have these beam generators on that you basically put them north and south and in line with each other, and then you sit in the middle of this beam. You know, that you don't plug them in. I mean, it's basically energy coming in and concentrated. So you know, I didn't know a whole lot about them. He explained how to use them. He explained what I should explain to the shaman, to the medicine woman. And so I thought, my God, you know, what's in these things? So, you know, I called him up when I got them, and I said, so what's going on with these? I mean, can I take them apart? And he says, no, they're sealed up. Can't take them apart. So what's in them? Is there metal in them? And he goes, yes. And I said, is there wire in them? And he says, yes. Are there magnets in them? Yes. Could they look like a bomb when they're x-rayed? Yes. So it's like, okay. And so I take a deep breath, and I thought, you know, this is just so crazy that they're going to be watching out for me. I have to just, you know, go with it. I got to go with the flow here. So I pack them up, and here we are. You know, I put them right at the top of the suitcase, and we're at Kennedy Airport, and then I, you know, they go through, and I'm you know, kind of half expecting a call. You know, Mark Leone, please report to, you know, nothing. We're on the plane, right, flying to Istanbul. And I thought, you know, okay, it's just going to go on. It's home free, right? Home free. It's just going to go. My luggage is going to, you know, I had a connecting flight in Istanbul to Nairobi, and I thought it's just going to go. You know, it's going to go on the plane just like it does most times, right? It goes on to Nairobi. So that's not how it worked. You know, we got off the plane, and we had to check our luggage, get our luggage, and then we had to rescan it in Istanbul. So now I'm in Turkey. Little different than being in you know, at Kennedy Airport. And you know, I'm loading the luggage on the conveyor, and it's going into this, you know, to get screened. And you know, they had this kind of makeshift setup where they had this kind of chain link fence around their, you know, their machine. I was able to get around the back of this chain link fence and look at the X-ray monitor. So I was watching the luggage go through, and I'm seeing my red suitcase go up, and I knew I had oriented it so that it was going to go through first. You know, I knew exactly where these things were in the suitcase, right on top. And I'm thinking, whoa, you know, I got a little nervous, but, you know, I took a deep breath, and I thought, this is going to be interesting. Like, what is going to happen here? So my suitcase crests, literally, you could see just the handle of my suitcase on the X-ray, and this Turkish guy behind the guy that's watching the screen yells something out at the guy that's, you know, my guy, right? That my guy turns around frustrated, like, you know, I'm in Turkish, I don't know. And I'm watching my machines go through, and man, they had bomb written all over them. I mean, just like, I'm telling you, it was literally like coils and wires. And I'm like, oh my God. And so he's doing his thing and he turns back as these things work their way through. Literally, they're through, and he just continues to watch. And I'm like, my God, that's really cool. You know, that was really cool. Unbelievable.
Those things don't work if they opened it, right? So
no, yeah, it wouldn't have worked. And I would have been in a Turkish prison anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered much. So anyway, I get to Nairobi and I meet my guide, right? And this is gonna be a long story. Is this all right?
Yes, yeah, that's what we're here for.
So I meet the guide Leonard in the hotel in Nairobi. We sit down and he wants to know, okay, so, you know, what do you want to do? And, you know, basically I'm working my way across the country to the Mara, right? Which is basically on the western side or eastern side of the country. And I said, look, you know, I have a mission to do when we're at the Masai Mara. I have to find a medicine woman named Mokele. I was given a healing device from Star People, and I've got to bring it to her. And he's like, okay, when we get there, we'll find her, no worries. And I'm thinking, this must happen all the time. You know, it's like he was completely non-fazed by it, right? So I thought, all right, cool. So, you know, I'm there for, you know, almost a month, right? So we're doing our thing. We're doing, you know, this is interesting. I had planned to climb Kilimanjaro just before I was going to get to the Mara, right? And it's a pretty, you know, it's a week-long climb. It's a serious climb. It's almost 20,000 feet. And I'd hired all the Sherpas, and I mean, it was a big deal. It took a year to arrange. So I'm in a bush camp, you know, a tented camp. And this is, you know, a few weeks before where I was supposed to climb. And I wake up at 2 a.m. hearing this sound. Okay, now this sound was like nothing I recorded it, like nothing I'd ever heard. It was not a bird, it was not an animal. I mean, I was kind of getting used to the bush sounds, you know, especially at night. And I heard this thing, it sounded like it was up in a tree. So I put on my clothes, shoes, and I grab my recorder and I walk out at 2 a.m. And now there's a moat, like in a big circle around this entire tent camp with an electric fence at the bottom of the moat, okay, to keep the critters out. So I knew the moat was there, and there was enough starlight. I mean, I could actually see. So I literally go and I find the tree where this thing is in, and I'm recording it, and it's mind-boggling. I mean, to this day, I don't know what it was, and nor did the guide who knows every creature in Kenya. He was just baffled. Anyway, so I recorded it. Now I'm walking back to the camp, which, I mean, it was quite a ways. I had walked quite a ways. I'm walking back to my tent, and I knew that the moat was to my left, right? And I'm thinking, all right, all I got to do is follow the moat, and I'll get to my tent, because my tent was relatively close, you know. But don't fall in the moat, right? Don't fall in the moat. 30 feet away from the moat or so, you know. And it's, you know, it's pretty easy walking. And I'm walking, and I take a step, and my left foot hits nothing. I tumble into the freaking moat head first, into the moat at 2 a.m. in the bush in Kenya. Nobody around, you know. I mean, I fell about 10 feet. I ended up sprawled my leg was sprawled on the electric fence. The thing must not have been turned on, or they turned it off, because I didn't get shocked. I flew out of that moat within seconds. I was like, what the hell is in here? You know, I literally clawed my way out, and I got to the top, and then I realized that I was really hurt. You know, I mean, after the adrenaline wore off, and I literally laid there, and there were animals around and stuff. I mean, there were things that were jumping over the moat, not the lions. That's the only, I was like, as long as the lions didn't jump over, I was okay. But there were herbivores that were jumping over, and they were eating grass around me. I couldn't move. I stayed there till dawn, basically. Then I crawled back to my tent. anyway, what I realized though, and I had torn, I tore my calf muscle, I hurt my back, that they did not want me to climb Kilimanjaro. I'm almost certain that they literally dropped me into that damn moat because I was nowhere near the moat, and all of a sudden I'm stepping into the moat. Those
very convincing, Mark.
Rascally bastards dropped me into the moat. So anyway, I was able to walk a little bit. I recovered. Got some really good bush medicine. Some good herbs that they cooked me up for pain and everything, and that worked. But now I'm going to jump forward a little bit. That on the way, that the last night we were there, last morning, I had an incident that literally knocked my calf was okay, but my back was still a little messed up, and that was an incident that literally knocked my back into shape before I left Kenya. So they literally fixed me before I left. It's like crazy. I got hit by a boat. I literally got run over by a boat and pinned underneath the boat. And when I came up, I was fine. Literally, I was fixed.
Oh, wow.
Nuts. Anyway, so we get to the Mara. This 3 weeks of journey, right? We get to the Masai Mara, and we're now. It was really not easy to get to. Right, it's a long, bumpy, dusty ride. Very interesting, but not easy to get to. Got there, got to the tent. And I sit down with Leonard and I explain the whole thing again, that I've got these units from, that were given to my friend from Star People, and, this technology, and his jaw is on the ground and his eyes are like, he didn't listen to me in Nairobi, obviously. And he's like, are you crazy? What, he was literally going nuts. And so when he calmed down, Star People, calm down. And he said, okay. He said, do you have a location? Any location? I said, no, it's in the Mara. And then he reiterated to me, I already knew this. He goes, it's 30,000 square hectares. He said, you're here for 4 days. He said, you might not find her in 4 years. And I'm like, look, I'll find her, So he said, okay, tomorrow morning, we're going to go. The only, I know a young warrior in one of the villages. This is not, they're going to come and check you out. This is not like a tourist thing. These guys are living an indigenous life. This is not this is not for show, but they know me, I know them, and I'll tell them what's going on. But they're going to come and check you out with their spears, and they're going to look pretty ferocious. Not going to hurt you, but they're going to look you up and down for a long time. So, couple hour ride, we get there, and 3 young warriors in their red, beautiful, right? Red, in their red cloaks, and their spears. I can see them coming out. We parked far from their little circular village, and they come out and they stop, and Leonard has a word with them, and then they look in the van, and they are looking me up and down, just stone-faced, up and down and from the side, and talking to each other, whispering and looking at me again, and finally they nod to Leonard, and Leonard's like, yeah, they're going to let you in, which means I could go into the village. So we walk a couple hundred yards into the village, and as soon as I cross the gate in the village, I'm like, I'm one of them. It's amazing. All of a sudden, smiles, warmth. The men did a greeting song, and then the men go off and do their thing, and the women came and did a greeting song. I was like, it was absolutely amazing. So anyway, they brought me to their shaman, their medicine woman, who was, probably one of the most striking human beings I've ever seen in my life. This woman, she was just stunning. She had these yellow eyes and just this skin, and unbelievable. She looked at me and my knees went weak. She was, what a beautiful human being. Anyway, through the interpreter, I asked her if she knew Mokele, and she said, yes, I do. She trained me, and she used to live over there, but now she lives over here. which is a couple hours away. So then I thought, okay, maybe I got to make sure that Mokele's not like Mary in Swahili, or, that it, that is I didn't want to make sure it wasn't a common Maasai name. So I asked her and she said, no, very uncommon, very uncommon. So I thought, this is my Mokele. So the next day we recruited a couple of the young warriors. They wanted to ride in the van in the worst way. So it was pretty easy to recruit them. And they basically, there's no road. So you're just going through the bush. It's really just like grasslands, and this one warrior pointed the way. And, after an hour and a half or so, we get to another smaller village, and he says, wait here. He goes in and I expected that she might have gotten some dream or something, like had been alerted by these ETs that maybe this was coming, this machine, this device. And, but no, she was completely taken by surprise and stunned by the whole thing. As you saw in the video, she allowed me into her, into her cow dung hut, which they all have. Right. And I went through the whole process of showing her how to use them, and it was really pretty remarkable. And I did keep in touch. The one warrior had a sister who lived in the closest village outside of the Mara that had an internet cafe. So he actually every 6 months had access to a computer, and I gave him my address, and he remembered it. And he literally contacted me, and we still are in touch. And she's cured a lot of people with that device, a lot of kids. She works with kids. That device has cured a lot of kids, apparently, which is amazing. And it was designed especially for them.
You think of what all these things, how that all came together, Mark.
I found her in 2 days. Literally the first day we found her. Of course, I had to just go with it. Why would they, send me, to go through all the trouble, right? And not let me actually find this woman, It's amazing.
Probably Absolutely. A lot better than spending 20 days in a Turkish prison. So
I think so. Probably, yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Okay, Mark Leone, we have several questions. Did you want to break your story, or did you want to continue in your story?
No, that's about it. There's a few other little things, but no, that's the gist of it. Let's go with the questions.
Okay, a lot of people writing stuff here, and I see everything. Sorry. Okay. So Mark, did any of the ceremonies you participate in use, and I'm not sure how to pronounce it, so I'm going to spell it, Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did an ayahuasca ceremony at Lake Atitlan in Guatemala with this shaman. Mm-hmm.
So the other question is, Mark, was there contact with Audrey's group? Did they share with him with you any stories about their civilization awakening or joining galactic community? And how did they transition? How long did it take? And did they educate everyone overcame the violent and separation mindset? Maybe the history can help navigate it. That's more of quite a few questions.
We were always frustrated by the lack of information that we got. We asked a ton of questions, and more times than not, we would get this, that is not important. Literally, they were literally using us to get a message of awareness. And, they're like, these simpletons, they don't know, but, they literally, I was always frustrated by the little tidbits of information we got. So no, we were never privy to any of that. We were, they would tell us some dimensional stuff, like, they did share a few things, but not a whole lot on their civilization. No, and where they came from, when they, how, what was their ascension like? No, they wouldn't share that with us.
Okay. The next question is, how they want to know how you got those two machines in the first place. I think you said, but I think
a friend of mine from Alabama literally got them from this tall white race. I got the plan, he's an engineer, and he got like a schematic, a blueprint to build them for this woman, Mokele, for this witch doctor or medicine woman. And then he sent them by mail, to me. And then I put them in my suitcase.
And then next question, do you feel like the journey taught you things that you wanted to learn? And would you seem like they could have delivered the beams themselves, but they wanted you to take the journey?
That's a great question. Yeah, I often wondered, right, like why me? Like what was the point of having me do it when obviously these beings can pretty much do what they want to do? I don't have an answer other than maybe my own, spiritual growth, personal growth, maybe letting go of fear, of the fear of being arrested in Turkey. Who knows? It really, there was a lot that I learned from it. And I didn't have any personal or direct contact with this group of beings. It was my friends' group, if you will. So it's not like they never, at least not that I know of. Obviously they were around during that event because they kind of guided things, and threw me in a moat also. I don't know. I'm having a hard time forgiving them for that. When I see them, I'm going to give them such a pinch. They will never forget it. I swear to God.
Maybe that's why you haven't seen them in a little while.
I have not seen them. No, I never saw that group. No.
So
they were stealthy.
There's no more questions. So
okay.
Brad or Grant, do you have more questions for Mark?
I had written a couple down. You had the ayahuasca ceremony. What did you personally learn from the ayahuasca ceremony?
That was fascinating in its non-eventfulness.
Oh, wow.
I literally, that journey was to have a non-journey on ayahuasca.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, and apparently it doesn't happen often, but it does happen where I got literally nothing. I was not not in an altered state.
Is that right? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
The aliens are doing that to you. They don't need to give you that way.
maybe they're like, yeah, we got to keep him straight. I don't know. I mean, look, the whole ceremony was great. The whole thing was cool. I mean, I really enjoyed, and I mean, the location, if you guys look up Lake Atitlan, not very many people know about it, but it's just this, it's surrounded by volcanoes and it's in this valley, and it's just the most gorgeous lake. Really quite remarkable. So to do, just the setting was, I mean, I was a little disappointed, I've got to say, because I was certainly, prepared for this, major spiritual awakening, and didn't happen.
2 years ago, I was at a the UFO Congress, and two guys that both came from New Jersey. And I've seen them there quite often. They go to the UFO experiencers in the morning every year, which is a very interesting part of the event. And they had told me about their ayahuasca ceremony, which was somewhere in Brazil, in the rainforest. And he was telling me about this 12-foot high Black Panther that walked alongside him in the jungle, telling him about him and what he should be doing instead of the things that he is doing. That's
what I was looking for. Yeah.
So I have two questions. Back to Audrey's calls. How did they start? So how did they originally contact?
That's a great question. The first one was about 3 months after I started with Stan. We really were just working on the manuscript and kind of just getting the whole premise of the book together and kind of laying it out, and I was at my office, and I got a call on my office phone, and I remember, I was so blown away and excited that I think my energy literally stopped the call because they stopped in mid-sentence. So I did get some of it though, and they had said that that I was I was unexpected, meaning my entry into the field, their field. You know, they would always say past is easy, future is hard, meaning that they certainly, you know, they knew what an ancient past, but the future was still fluid, even though they kind of had an idea of a trunk line going forward. Future was fluid. So they didn't see me coming, apparently, and they were, you know, very much happy, and said that I was a surprise to them. And then I said something like, "I'm so excited that you called," and then it just boom, you know. I was like, and I always felt that it was my, you know, ridiculous energy that literally just ended the call, you know. So anyway, that was my first call. I did not record that because I didn't have the wherewithal yet to, you know, to even know that they were calling. I mean, you know, that was the first. So.
Okay, we have two questions, and one is a live question. Brad, you wanted to ask Mark a question? If you want to unmute yourself, Brad. Hello?
I'm working on it there. Okay. Thank you. Mark, it was so amazing when you brought up the interaction with using an electronic device, the cell phone, that they were actually calling you and you could hold a conversation. Last year, after the CE5 at Big Arb, about 5 weeks after that, I got a text message by folks who aren't from around here stuck inside my grocery list. Every app on my phone had opened up. I kid you not. I did not think that was possible. And that was like 42 apps. And I'm deleting them and deleting them and deleting them. And the last one is my grocery list. And here's the freaking message right there.
Oh,
Grant
that's cool.
and I sat down and I showed Grant that message. And the way that voice was speaking, the phraseology and the breaks are similar to, though not exact, to the way that message was texted to me. And
wow.
Yeah, and I thought, well, is it just me? But no. Again, this year, as we moved into the event Horizon with Big Arb, my cell phone started coming to life, and bizarre things were again happening to that. Now, I'm not going to take that away, but you just confirmed something that the other folks were telling me about. And it is just so freaking bizarre. But every time it happens to me, I always express gratitude and thanks. Yeah. There's this interaction. It's two-way. It's
remarkable. And why not? You know, it's funny because I've had some people say, that's ridiculous. They're calling you on your phone. Anybody could be calling you on your phone, which I guess is true. But why not use the technology we have? You know, why? You know, I mean, they're smart. They're going to use that technology. And you know, if you're discerning, you can. You know, you don't want to. You know, I think I was. You know, actually, I was not that skeptical because I had already been pretty well versed in a lot of the Audrey calls that had happened already. You know, this was not new. That had been on many calls over a number of years already. So, you know, I had been reading about them in the manuscripts and talking to all these different people about them. So I guess I was ready for it. But yeah, it's an amazing thing. That's cool, Brad. Wow, that's really cool.
Well, the one thing that you've taught me is make sure I have a recorder beside me to capture all this stuff. I mean, this is nuts.
To capture, it's really fun to capture it. Yeah. And then it's funny because they would end up now, after a while, they knew I wanted it recorded. So they would leave me messages instead of actually getting me live, it's funny. The one time I was always frustrated because they wouldn't allow me to really ask questions. They just want to get their message across, There would be pleasantries exchanged and then they would just go into their message. So I knew I was going to get a call. So I knew one was coming. It had been several weeks. So I got a couple of questions in my head, like I rehearsed them, and I said, I'm not even going to say hi or hello or anything. I'm going to literally launch into a question the next time they call. I don't care. I'm getting frustrated. I want answers, right? So they call, and what do they do? Now, of course, I didn't talk to anybody about this. This was in my own head going on, And what do? Really quickly. No time for questions and answers today, Mark. Really quick. I mean, I took a breath to ask the question. No time for questions and answers today, Mark. And then they launch into the thing. I'm like, fuck. You know, this is like, sorry.
So you know that they're telepathic, right, Mark? They can read.
God. Yeah, they knew. They were in my head all the time. They knew exactly what I was thinking.
So we have a couple more questions.
Okay.
Oh, I guess 3 more questions. Somebody just popped up with another one. Okay. Let's see. Did they talk a bit about the 5th and 6th dimension density beings and the whole hibernation process?
Hibernation. You're hybriding. Hybriding?
I think that's what it is. But they're
very little. I mean, we knew from Stan's regressions, all his time on the ship, and how the medical process, and the fact that he had about 9 offspring. But they, again, I was largely, and we were largely frustrated in asking some of the more detailed questions. We would not get a lot of answers from them. Yeah. So no, not really. I mean, we knew that the light being, which they had said that we call them and have called them in the past Elohim, which were electric blue beings. They were in the 6th dimension. And then the Orion was a 5th dimensional being. We knew that. And the hybrid females were 4th dimension. I actually have, I should have brought this up previously. I might be able to find it pretty quickly. Would you guys want to see a picture of one of the hybrid females?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Just bear with me a moment. You know what? You could maybe get another question queued up while I'm looking for this.
So I think you kind of answered this. I think you kind of.
Can I just do something for a second?
Sure.
I just want to recognize that Betty Holtman's here tonight. Hi, Betty. She's fighting a tremendous battle right now. And we're all here praying for you, sending our positive energy to you. And I want to thank her for all the help that this place may not even have existed today if it wasn't for Betty, because she carried the ball and let things happen when I didn't know how to turn a computer on. So I have to thank Betty, and I see her sitting there at home listening in on the show, which is great to see, and wish you well, Betty.
Hi, Betty.
Hi, Betty.
We all send it.
So I have a picture here. I'm hoping, I'm going to put it up. I don't know if we're going to be able to really see it. This was taken in New Mexico. It's from the side, that blurry thing is somebody's pant leg. But if you can see her features, that is Suri. You can see, unfortunately, she was blinking. Her eyes were enormous, but you can see the, big almond-shaped upturned eyes, and see the brow ridge, very small nose, tiny mouth. She had 3 fingers and a thumb. She'd fold her hands, so you really couldn't see, but if you count them, her hands were real narrow, and she would walk around folded like that, so it was harder to tell that she only had 3 fingers. And she had this device on her. Boy, it's hard to see, but this brooch that was kind of humming. It was, I thought it was probably either communication or something. But we actually got the woman that she was sitting next to wrote us a whole, 2 or 3 pages on this conversation she had with her, and it's like basically made her entire life this sitting next to this hybrid and talking to her. She clearly knew that this was not someone that was human, but just a real loving being, very, very pure being. What event was that at, Mark? That was in New Mexico at a conference. Stan, one of Stan's conferences. Yeah.
And she didn't
and there was
meet with them, right?
No,
yeah.
No. This was before my time.
See them.
Just before I got involved. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. And Lisa Romanek took that picture.
Is that ever something?
Yeah.
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 Well, so we have some more questions. Did Audrey in the group ask you any questions? Are they curious about humanity?
They know more about us than we know about us.
Okay.
Yeah. So no questions about us. Oh, we only ask questions about them, and we're usually frustrated by the answer, which was, this is not important. Not all the time, but most of the time, that's what we got.
And then the next question is, do you believe you have healing abilities? Your message resonates. I often would get that that's not important, the message, and it works that it is important. I should stop focusing on aliens and ships now. And I know that although I originally knew them as ETs in my past life, they are now multi-dimensional advanced beings and not flying on crafts. Do you think some of these beings are connected with who aren't ETs?
You mean connected with humans?
Yeah.
Earth humans? Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, I think
connected with other beings as well.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely, sure. We're kind of in quarantine here. I mean, most of these star beings are connected with many other races, I think.
Okay, are there any beings concerned about the future of humanity?
Yes. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they
there's
are.
Good reason.
Yeah, good reason. And you know what they say. You know, these the hybrids, the Audrey, the Audrey entity, Kioma used to say to us, "We're like children playing with matches." All the time. They'd get frustrated with us, and they would say, "You're like children playing with matches." Yeah.
Yeah.
So nuclear matches, I see. Right. Yeah. Right. But I got an interesting story, and I think one of the it's in the book actually in Answers. One of the reasons we were getting harassed, I believe, I'm not certain about this, is that of course this information is out there everywhere now, but this was fairly new back then. Was the Minot nuclear base incident, where in 1969, we had information from a high-ranking military official who was on his deathbed that sent it to us to publish. He wanted it out there. And basically these two craft armed the nuclear missile in the silo at Minot. And then shortly thereafter disarmed it, like literally shut it down completely, like literally, broke the thing. And you can imagine how our military did not want that out there, but basically ZTs are showing us like, hey, if we don't want nuclear missiles launched, we're going to stop it.
Okay.
Even though I think that they're not really supposed to intervene, but it's different when we're messing with nukes that kind of rip the fabric of time space. It messes with other dimensions. It's not just, we have no idea what it does, but it literally is. That's why nuclear power, nuclear fission, even just producing the power, they're constantly having to clean up the mess that this makes, the ETs, I think.
Okay, we have some more questions.
Nuclear power is not clean. I'm sorry?
We have some more questions, unless you want to
finish
your story. Oh, okay. Do you believe that the beings you connected with, not the ET on spaceship, but are they higher vibrational beings? And I think you said that already, right?
Yeah. As far as we know, again, this is the information we got, that the hybrids were fourth dimensional beings, and then there were fifth and sixth dimensional beings involved with us as well.
Okay, and then
the sixth dimensional being was an energy, a light being.
And then somebody asked the name of the book.
Answers.
Okay. And
I published several of them: Answers, the Orion regressions, and From My Side of the Bed. Okay. And they're all relating to the same case.
Those of you connected with are not aliens ET, so I don't know if that was a question or just a comment. And have they answered you to do have they asked you to do anything perhaps encouraging meditation?
No, no. I mean, again, none of this, the information that I got personally was about me. It was literally all to help me navigate the opposition's shenanigans that they were constantly pulling to try to derail the publishing. So it was literally nothing. The only information that I got, like I said, I had asked that spiritual, the recording that you guys heard was at the end was them answering my question about basically going, they said, go within. You have the answers are within you. Trust your intuition. That's a classic spiritual teacher thing to say.
Okay, if they are connected, concerned about humanity, do you think they would intervene to protect humanity?
Boy, that's a great question. They're not supposed to, as far as I can tell. We have to figure it out. I mean, they're doing what they can do through awareness, which raises our vibration spiritually. So I think that, but as far as like coming and intervening, they've done that in the past and it hasn't worked here. So I don't think they're going to do it again. We have to figure it out.
Okay, Mark, do these beings ever suggest we should stop eating or abusing animals?
Very interesting what they say about health. And this is not coming from my group of ETs, but another ET. That the question was asked, and what can we do for our health? And it's just brilliantly simple. The first thing was, oh, actually no, you know what? I'm sorry, this didn't come from the hybrid. This came from the Orion. This came from the Orion. 3 things. 1, breathe more deeply. He said, you humans are all shallow breathers. Breathe, okay?
As we all take a deep breath.
And then he said, and number 2, drink more water. You humans are water vessels. And he said, and I guess contrary to popular beliefs, we are 90% water. I think medical science says we're 75%. He said we're 90% water. So he says, drink more water. And then the third thing was eat more high vibrational foods.
So that's live food.
Live foods, correct. Live foods. That's it.
Okay, and next.
That's simple.
Okay, do you have anything to extend on that? Otherwise, I have another question.
No, that was it.
Okay. Do you think your African experience was a lesson in removing your fear of uncertainty, like we got your back?
Definitely, part of it. Oh yeah. Think about it. I mean, you think about, where I could have gone with the fear, where I'm standing in a Turkish airport, running 2 potential bombs through their scanner. I mean, I could have gone, I could have gone into a flop sweat panic over that thing, and instead I know they helped me too, with my fear, but I was not afraid.
Good.
So yes, I'm sure they helped, and that was part of the lesson. Absolutely.
Okay. Next question. Are there any planets nearby with beings as primitive as us? Did they share that?
There was, and they blew themselves up. Malona was, some people call it Marduk, but as far as I know, our asteroid belt was a planet, and they were high technology, low spirituality, about the same level we're at. Just to give you an idea where we're at, we asked and we actually got this Orion to answer this question, where we stand on the scale, source being 100%, You know, so where are we on the evolutionary and spiritual scale? And they started out with the Elohim, which are at about 60%. The Orions said that their group is 30 to 35%. And that humans, the best human that we have, the most advanced human is 1.5%. So it's like, great. No wonder they get a kick out of us.
Sounds like we have a long ways to go.
We got a long way to go. You gotta have a sense
of like owning an ant farm or something.
Really, you gotta have a sense of humor about it. I mean, it's like
an ant farm might be more advanced than
you know, and then they could have just been messing with us.
Yeah, at least they work together.
You're right. Right. Yeah.
You know, listen, on your level of spirituality, Mark, are you a believer we're all?
I'm at least the 1%. I'm at least at 1.
I'm thinking you're around 15, but you know, I don't want to say it in front of everybody.
0.15.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, go ahead. What's your question?
I just think on the spirituality question, because you have developed that aspect. I mean, Grant Cameron and I had talked about things where he starts from seeing the craft to different things, to music, to consciousness, and your level of spirituality and to where you've gone from the experiences that you've had and where you've developed to. Is it still or are you at an issue of oneness, that we are all one, connected? Well,
yeah, of course, but you know, I mean that's pretty well ingrained. I think where I've gotten the most benefit is my ability to not take all this stuff so seriously, you know, especially at this heightened time in the political theater and the COVID theater. And, you know, I mean, it literally, ultimately, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's, we're heading to an evolutionary, awakening at some point, you know, and it literally, I think we go, you know, we can't help that. I mean, that's the inevitable pull towards source. You know, it takes longer or shorter, but ultimately, you know, we're spirit having a human experience or a physical experience. So, you know, when you've really internalized that, it really helps with life, you know, and because you know, I mean, you don't take it all that seriously, and that makes it's like the lightness of being, you know, it makes it much more light, just to day to day, just the lightness, you know. So, you know, that aspect I think is the most important for me. It has been.
Okay, we have a few more questions. Are you finished with the answer you gave, Mark? Mm-hmm. Okay. I think you kind of answered this, but somebody wants to know, why was it decided to create hybrid women, and was it to help to save their own species?
There's certainly, you know, I mean, the Greys have been hybriding for a long time to save their own species and other things, you know. I think that we know that's been established. There were a couple of hybrid males in this group too, but they were not as advanced as the females, so they were not really able to do the work that they tasked the females with. So, you know, this hybriding is not an exact science, even for them, you know. So, and you know, there's so many reasons that I'm not privy to, that they're, you know, it's never just one reason that they're hybriding. I'm sure, you know, it's multi-layered, multi-dimensional reasons.
Okay. The picture of the blonde, is she a hybrid or an alien? And I think you said she was a hybrid, right?
Well, she's an ET, certainly. I mean, yeah. You know, but she is of three different races, 2 star being and one human. Yeah, as far as the DNA makeup. So she's got 2 different star beings DNA and 1 set of human DNA, male and female, which with Stan and V.
Okay. Did the ETs ever address a massive red planet intersecting Earth's orbit or dimensional field?
Like Nibiru? No.
Okay. And somebody said they're going to be honest. It's troubling to them that Audrey's entity would not have a respectful conversation with Mark or others. They just wanted to deliver messages. Seems like a lot of trouble to just coldly deliver messages. Why engage in questions and why not engage in questions and answers? Humans may be primitive or youthful, but if they cared, they would have a conversation with us.
I so agree. Yeah, I limited conversation for sure. Yeah, and they had more conversation with Stan than me, certainly. I was kind of like a minion, I think, as far as which was fine. I mean, I signed up for it and got what I got out of it, certainly, which was a lot. But that was always very frustrating. I agree. Although I really recognized toward the end, I recognized how important that awareness will be. So I'm thrilled that I was involved and that I played my part. So, regardless of whether they talked to me or not and answered my questions, I still wouldn't trade it for anything. Yes, there was frustration there, but
okay.
It was an incredible experience.
Mm-hmm. This is a comment about the energy generators created for the Masi shaman, and these energy generators are being produced today and many people are using them. Some of them are based on Royal Rive's frequency, discovered in the 20th century, and I refer to everyone as, okay, she's got a website here. Everybody can look at the website in the comments section.
Is that Wilhelm Reich?
Yeah.
Wilhelm Reich, yeah, Oregon.
Mm-hmm. And there's also a plasmatic machine, scalar machines, in which you sit between energy frequencies for healing.
It's very similar, although I don't know exactly if it's the same, but it's certainly collecting etheric energies and focusing them and concentrating. So it's probably similar. And I don't know, the government basically stole Wilhelm Reich's orgone machine in the 30s, I think, even maybe late 20s, because it was working far too well.
Yeah,
curing cancers and doing all kinds of things, and they basically put him in jail and took all his research and took the machine.
Okay, there's a lot of chatter back and forth, so I'm reading through to see what are questions and what are chatter. Okay, does Audrey or other ET light beings ever visit Mark in his dreams?
They may, and I'm not aware of it. I would love to say yes, but I'm not aware of it. I had some pretty vivid dreams that I can, but there might have been them generating those dreams, while I was working with them. But they never came and actually looked at me, like I never spent time with them in my dreams, at least not to my conscious memory.
Okay, I think that is the end of the questions. Let me see. Oh, there's one more. Somebody's always doing one more. Mark, have you mentioned the opposition? How much do you think the government knows?
Oh my God, yeah, that it's it was pretty clear that it was this quasi-government organization, very well funded, very well equipped, that was messing with us. I didn't believe it at first. Stan had kind of read me in on it, and I was like, yeah. It sounded pretty far out until him and I were together, and this black helicopter comes zooming up, and maybe within 500 feet of us, and you could see the filming, the video ball rotated down. They were so close you could see the pilot. And stayed there for a couple of minutes filming us, I suppose. I mean, they had the ball, rotated down at our angle. And then when it zoomed overhead, there was it was, basically a full blown out Apache, war helicopter, military, without any markings, nothing. So the classic black helicopter. And I was like, holy shit, it's real. This is really happening,
So I'm going to ask, no, you can continue. You can continue.
Well, that's when it's like, okay, not everybody has one of those helicopters,
I have had them. I have had them.
But I mean, it's got to be a military or a paramilitary operation, to have something like that,
So I'm going to ask people, they're chatting back and forth, and if they have a question, please use all caps so I know that it's a question coming up instead of just chatter. So
Mark, I have to say that Mark Cuthbert, I don't know if you remember Mark. So,
of course.
Yeah, Mark came to visit us, my wife and I, at the Rocks, which is in Northeast Scottsdale. You were there once, right? During the event. So when Mark showed up, he came in the front door. We walked to the back where the hot tub is. We were going to sit down and we are going to have a drink and talk. And a black helicopter flew over top of us, maybe 200 or 300 feet above us. And I'd never seen a helicopter less than 1,000 feet above us. And it hovered over us for maybe 10 seconds. And I said, Mark, I have never in my life seen that. And Mark is a really unique guy. I mean, you and I know a little bit about him, but
wow.
I used his military grade glasses that you could see at nighttime with him.
Night vision,
Things flying over top of us. So
he was fun, man. We had fun with him.
Yeah, I really miss him. I'd sure like to have another chat with him again. So
I think we very interesting character.
Yeah, he sure was.
So we have another question.
Okay.
Okay. Mark, have you ever read Whitney Streiber's latest book, A New World, Any Reflections?
No, I haven't. I read his early work, very early work, Communion. And then there was the next one, that was his first. But no, I haven't read any of his new work. I spent a little time with him and his wife at these events. Interesting character. I liked him. He's unusual, very unusual character, but nice guy.
Okay. How about the abort phenomena? Any of that?
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay. Brad, do you want to, that was your question. Do you want to?
That was my question. Ports. I met with Stan last year at his house. I was talking to him about the apport phenomena. He mentioned a number of different things, like things moving, disappearing, reappearing, falling out of the sky, that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. What are you calling it?
Apport or manifestation. Apport is when it moves around. Manifestation.
Okay. Yeah, I had never. Oh God, yeah. That was happening all the time. Weird things. Holes would open up in the room, and crystals would fall out of them. All kinds of crazy things happened. Yeah.
Okay. There's a question. As Grant Cameron uses the term "wow," what has been your greatest wow moment in your life so far? Mark?
My God. There's been so many of them. I can't, there's just so many, and I can't really, interesting that I don't have one that I can actually come up with. I've had so many wow moments in my life. Many. Great question, and I can't really, if I come up with something later, I'll chime in, but sorry.
Okay. Not sure, but I think somebody's giving a comment to everybody. I've had these black chippers and other choppers fly over my head and almost landed on the roof. So they must be talking about the black helicopters. And wow. Whenever I sleep long, I get choppers flying overhead, which indicates we did a good job for that day. So, okay. And do you recall your first otherworldly experience? Did you want the person who asked that question to repeat that?
No, my first otherworldly. Yeah, not right offhand. I've had number, but yeah, no, I can't answer that one.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? It seems to be empty. I think people are kind of maybe working up the courage. Mark? Oh, here's one. Yep. How about in childhood, strange experiences?
Yeah, none. Yeah, no ET experiences that I know of. Again, I was fascinated by it, but I had never seen anything, or as far as I know, had never been taken, or until I got involved with Romanek. That was like my first real experience. You know, and then of course I had many, but yeah, and before that, it was just a fascination, deep fascination and deep seeking of you know, experience, of knowledge, but I really had no experience at that point. And then the experiences started to come fast and furious, but until then, no. So not as a child that I'm aware of.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Mark and Grant if they have any more finishing questions. We got about 13 minutes left. If the two of you have any questions.
Well, my issue is that from the connection that we've always had, Mark, and all the sort of, when we get together, this connection and the interesting things that seem to happen to us when we do get together are so special. I mean, and I was wanting to get you, it just seemed that, you know, the stars aligned when you called me up the other day to say, how am I doing? And I, you know, I'm looking for someone to be a speaker on the, for our guest tonight. And it seemed to work out absolutely perfect to sort of come together, because you're a very interesting person. We spent a lot of time together and obviously have a lot of laughs too. You got a great sense of humor. And maybe that thing when they flew over the black helicopter was something that dealt with hair. I'm not sure if that was one of the factors.
I had hair then. That's it. That's what happened. Yeah. Those bastards.
Yeah, I wasn't there. So, I mean, I
had a full head of hair before that. Whoa, really? I'm calling my congressman. I'm going to call my congressman.
Mark, can I ask you a question? Maybe if you want to get into it or not. Yeah. Both you and Mark were using psychics. What's your impression on the accuracy of psychics? Are they usable? Because I know that's where Mark got down the rabbit hole. The psychic rabbit hole was through you.
Yep. Well, you know, the psychics that we used were extremely accurate, and not 100%. But boy, I'll tell you, really, I don't know, Mark. What would you say? 80% maybe? 90?
I've had tremendous experience with the people that I have been directed to, and that I continue to this day to talk with. I think Grant Cameron was dead right. It was one of the things that put me over the edge to say, hey, this is real. There is no way. Our good friend Sandy, who we know, I was looking for someone like her. You and I go out and we're going to go pick up some groceries for the weekend with all the guys that show up there, and we're talking on the way there, and we invite her out. And I had a 93-year-old woman she had invited me to come speak to her, and she said, I need to seek an intuitive to help me sort of for guidance going forward. So for 2 years, I was meeting Reiki therapists and stuff like that. And she said to me, when you meet this person, you'll know it. So anyways, you introduced her, she came over, and I'd booked her only for an hour. And 4 hours later, I was going, wow. I mean, the concept that she immediately proved herself to me, that she had the capabilities. And I asked her, so I hear me asking you these questions, and I was wondering, where are you getting these answers from? I said, you're either reading my mind, because I know I'm the only one that knows the answers to the questions that I prepared, or where are you getting it from? So she says to me, I asked the creator, and he provides the answers.
Well, she calls it source.
Source, yeah, right.
That's it from source.
And so, I mean, it was quite remarkable to think at that point, she said to me, you can ask source any question you like. What would you like to know? And that was a daunting moment for me to start off going, okay, I can ask Source any question I like. Now, where do I start here? Like, give me a second. Let me think here.
What is the meaning of life?
Yeah, I mean, it was a daunting moment, but it was one of my awakening moments. When I look back, I'd said to you in that beautiful cottage of yours that you're in right now, was one of the 5 moments in my life where I had a different type of an awakening, not from your snoring, by the way, but from Sandy's incredible gifts that she has and continues to this day, and trained along the proper path to make this world a better place.
As I pointed out that afternoon, that was the NHL draft. He totally ignored it. It showed how much you.
Well, that's saying something, Grant. That is saying something. My God.
That there's no question. If anyone knows me, and I studied the draft like there's no tomorrow, and the draft was in New Jersey, I could have driven to it. And I can tell you only one thing. I was very happy that I met Sandy Longo and had that discussion with Source instead of going to the draft.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
But,
we have two more questions, and then I want to end the questions because we're going to do some final talks between Grant and Mark. So do you remember your past lives or how you got killed in a past life, Mark?
I've had there was I don't know about my death in a past life, but I know that I guess the most memorable were the Atlantean lives, and one of them in particular that I don't want to get into, but that one was intense.
Okay. And let's see. Have you heard of any UFO cases that like constant contactees who suddenly disappear without a trace? If so, were there conditions just before they disappeared, or did they have unusual sightings occur just before a person disappeared?
I don't know any. I know a few people that have constant contact. One in particular that's down south, but he's still around. So I don't know any that personally that have disappeared. No.
And then do any of these beings have connection with Dr. Stephen Greer and his CE5 project?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to end the questions, and I will leave it up to Mark and Grant to finish this off. And we have, we're now at 8:52.
Thank you. Listen, what I'd like to end with this is to thank you, Mark, for coming on and being our guest.
That's great. Yeah.
Always enlightening. I knew it would be fun and have a few laughs and stuff like that. We can get, in this world, we have so much seriousness to be able to explore into these areas. I know you are an explorer, and to have you join us and share these thoughts, we really do appreciate it. It really means something to me and to all these people that keep coming here every month to look at it. Our group now is over 825 people, which is fantastic. We maybe get between 70 or 100 type of thing on the Zoom calls. And I'm actually looking forward to meeting in person again, like where we can get together and do something and have the kind of fits where you wake up in the morning, your face is sore from laughing. Those are really good moments. And it seems to happen a lot around you. So I appreciate you and all the things you do for humanity and actually helping disclose the things that you have, provide answers through your books that you've helped with the Romanics. And you're an all-around good person. And I thank you for coming tonight and enjoying and spending some time with us and sharing with us.
Thank you, Mark. That means a lot to me.
Well, that's great. And we look, you know what? I look forward to the times we're going to get together, because it's this time when we all seem to be separated, these personal connections, even as Mitzi has mentioned, coming up to Canada, we would love to have an event. And maybe this is something that we're leading to, some personal get together where we get people to come up here. And we should maybe even start working on something like that. Grant,
I owe you a visit, man. I definitely owe you a visit.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Grant, do you have anything to end with?
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking of is you need to somehow get a link to this so that I can share this. I invited a bunch of people because I knew who Mark was, and they didn't show up. But I think this is one of the most interesting meetings you've ever had. And a lot of stuff that Mark talked about, I didn't know about. I think this is a fascinating discussion that should be moved around because, you know, we've only got a few dozen people that have watched it, and it would be a waste if we didn't get this thing out on the internet. It's a fascinating interview you did. We can share it with you, Grant, if you want to post it. Yeah, because I mean, that's just fascinating stuff that that I'm sure people do not recognize. I mean, this is one of the, because I don't, how many interviews have you ever done, Mark? Have you done, you haven't done many? No, I'm a pretty private guy. Yeah. You know. Yeah, you got such fascinating material. I hope you do the book. I hope you put it, at least your article, because I remember you telling me those stories, and I heard them from, you know, from other people, with the phone calls and stuff, and it's sort of like, it's just so fascinating. People would just sort of get more of the message that this stuff is actually real. This stuff's going on, because you're not like a little guy. You're a business guy, very serious, you know, got a lot at stake and stuff like that. So I really appreciate your sharing the fascinating material.
Thanks, Grant. Mitzi and I will get together and we'll try and package this thing in a way that you can post it somehow.
Yeah, I appreciate it, because that's, I really appreciate him stepping up and doing this.
So do we.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Mm-hmm. That was fun.
Yep.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mark, for twisting my arm on this one.
Well, that was an easy twist. I knew it would work out well. Sure, everybody. Hey, listen, if everybody wants to take off their mute and say thanks, that you feel free to do so. Spending 2 hours with me is
thank you, Mark.
That's the longest I've ever heard you quiet, Mark Olson.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was very interesting.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate
it. Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mark. And Mitzi and Mark.
Well, thank you, Mark. That was awesome.
I'm grateful that you all spent 2 hours with us. Thank you.
We still have 2 more minutes if you want to use it up and say any final words, Mark.
Yeah, how about you want to end with, Mark?
What's important, you know, and what I've gotten, you know, the overarching message here is there's a few things that I've come away with, and that's, of course, that we are you know, we are members of this galactic family, you know, that we're literally all sparks of the same flame. We are all part of Source. We are all created of the same stuff, and most of us here don't realize it. You know, we live our little lives on this world, and we don't realize what's out there. And there's a lot of these beings that really want us to join them, you know, in this, basically in this star community. They really want us to join, and I think that's important. And of course, the other thing that's important is to you know, go easy on yourself. Be gentle in life. You know, be gentle. Don't take things so seriously, because, you know, we're eternal. You know, this is just a little blip. We are eternal beings, and you know, it gets us nowhere to take everything so seriously, like this is just the end all. It's not the end all. You know, it's important to live this experience and not to live another experience or spend too much time dwelling on your past lives or other things. But I think that, so it is very important to live the experience, but I think it's also important to put it in perspective.
Beautiful way to end it. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. And do you want to mention next month's meeting?
Next month's meeting is on the second Tuesday, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, and Mitzi and the rest of our crew. I'll thank tonight Mitzi for being the orchestrator of the night, but Brad also for help putting this together. And again, Betty for being here, which is great to see. Betty, great to see you. And we look forward to our next guest. Brad, do you want to talk a bit about her? We haven't got her to confirm yet, but.
No, but I think just like you did with Mark, twisting her arm will not be that difficult. Yes, Madeline Miller, and I'm going to scoop Grant Cameron on this one. He snoozes, he loses on this one. I've got Madeline Miller, and she'll be with us. She did some amazing stuff at Mount Shasta in 2018. We spoke this year at Big Arb, Wisconsin at the CE5. She's done some astonishing stuff. She is a very, very powerful woman. Mitzi has met her there. I've chatted with her, and yeah, she's interested in sharing a bit about Mount Shasta, the experiences, and her other contact experiences that she's had through a rather short life, but it's interesting, let me tell you.
Thanks again, Brad. And Mark, thanks again, and we look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you. What a pleasure.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Right.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Night. Thanks,
Mark.
Mitzi.
Night, Mark.
Good night, Betty.
Mark Grant.
Beautiful. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad.